Vijetha Study Circle. Today in this video we are going to discuss about the Indo and US military drill which is performed near the line of actual control. Why we are going to discuss this topic? Because very recently the China has opposed this Indo and US military drill near LAC. So in this context we are going to see what is this Indo-US military drill all about, and famously it is referred as Yuddha Abhyas. So we are going to learn in this video what is mean by this Yuddha Abhyas and why does the China oppose the military drill near LAC and what is this line of actual control. And many of us having a confusion what is difference between the line of actual control and line of control. So in this video we are going to get the clarity about all these things, and along with that we are going to discuss what are the recent issues and developments done between the India and the China. So let's quickly get started. As we said, very recently the China has opposed the war games between the India and the USA. The China has opposed the war games between the India and US near the China and India border, because the China is saying if this war games gets performed near the Indo-China border, it is referred as an interference between the bilateral boundary issue of India and China. So in this way the China is opposing this Indo and US military bases in the line of actual control. So if we see further, while the drill is yet to be officially confirmed, because not yet this drill has performed in this year, so it is going to be anticipated the 13th edition of this Yuddha Abhyas is going to be held on October 2022 at Oli in Uttarakhand. So nearly 100 kilometers from the line of actual control, this drill is going to be anticipated. So the China is having a worry about this drill. So in this context, let's see the other issues around. What is actually mean by this Yuddha Abhyas? It is the largest running the joint military training and defense cooperation endeavor between the India and the USA. Very, very important in the exam point of view. If we see, this exercise was started in the year 2004 and the US Army Pacific Partnership Program, and the exercise is hosted alternatively by both the countries, and in this year of 2022 this exercise is planned in the Uttarakhand in India. So in the Uttarakhand this exercise was planned, and the exercise aims at enhancing understanding and cooperation and interoperability between the two armies of India and US. This will help in undertaking the joint operations at battalion level in the mountainous terrain with cold climate conditions under the ambit of the United Nations. So this is what about Yuddha Abhyas means. Why does the India oppose this military drill near the LAC? The China says both the countries have agreed prior that no military drill will be held near the LAC in between of this borderline, and the China has given the witness of the two agreements we have signed between India and China in 1993 and the 1996, saying that whatever the today exercise performing by both the India and USA, it violates these agreements. Let's see what those agreements mean by. The 1993 agreement is based on the maintenance of peace and the tranquility along the line of actual control. The 1993 agreement is all about the maintenance of the peace, and in the same way the 1996 agreement is towards the confidence building measures. It is towards the confidence building measures in the military field along the line of actual control in the India and the China border areas. And a key element of these two agreements is that The two sides would keep their forces in the areas of line of actual controls to a minimum level. However, the agreement do not define what comprises this minimum level means. That means at the line of actual control, both the nations must maintain the military bases at the minimum level. But these agreements were silent to define what is this minimum level means. The 1993 and 96 agreements also mandate that a pending final solution to boundary question, that is, the two sides should strictly respect the line of actual control. And along with this 1993-1996, there was one more agreement made between India and China in the 2005, and it also strictly written the use of the firearms at the line of actual control. So based on these agreements, the China is opposing the India and US drill at the line of actual control. Let's see what is this line of actual control. The line of actual control is actually the demarcation that separates the India control territory from Chinese control territory. But there is a disagreement between the India and the China on this line, because India considers the line of actual control to be 3,488 kilometer long, but the China says it is only 2000 kilometers. So there is a disagreement of fixing this line between India and China. And if we see, the line of actual control was divided into three sectors. The eastern sector, which spans Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim, and there is a middle sector in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, and the western sector is in the Ladakh. So if we see this in the picture form. So in this picture we have mentioned the line of actual control here, and the total India and China border, the length is nearly 4,557 kilometers. Under that we have this line of actual control. In the western sector, this is in the Ladakh portion. In the middle sector, it is in the Himachal Pradesh and the Uttarakhand. And in the eastern sector, it is in the Sikkim and the Arunachal Pradesh area. So this is actually the line of actual control which separates the China and the India occupied territories. And what is the point of contention between these two countries? What is this disagreement? Why the India is feeling it is nearly 3,488 kilometers, but the China is saying it is only 2,000 kilometers. Why this disagreement was there between the two nations? The major disagreement are actually in the western sector. Just now in the previous video we have observed that in the western sector the line was in the Ladakh region. So the major disagreement was in this western sector. If we see the historical background, after 1962 war of Indo and China war, we all know in the historical perspective, the 1962 year was famous for the Indo and China war. After this war, the China claimed that they had withdrawn to 20 kilometers behind the LAC in November 1959. In the same way, in the eastern sector, the border coincides in the main with the so-called McMahon line. This McMahon line is considered in the eastern area as the separation line between the India and the China, and in the western and the middle sectors it coincides in the main with the traditional customary line which has consistently been pointed out by the China. And along with that, during the Doklam crisis in 2017, China urged India to abide by the 1959 LAC, but India rejected this one, and the India rejected the concept of LAC in both 1959 and even after the war. India's objection was that the Chinese line was a disconnected series of points on a map that could be joined up in many ways. and the line should omit gains from the aggression in 1962. Therefore, India is actually sticking towards the original line before the Chinese attack of 1962. So the China is saying after this war the line of actual control was changed nearly 20 kilometers ahead, but India is not in favor of this attempt of drawing the LAC after 1962 war. So this is actually a disagreement between the India and China, and many of us having a confusion, what is the LAC and LOC all about? In the newspapers we frequently read about LOC and LAC. So in this video we are going to get this clarity. The line of control, the LOC, is emerged from 1948 ceasefire line negotiated by the United Nations after the Kashmir war. So it was designated as line of control in 1972 following the Shimla agreement between the two countries. That is, the line of control is in between of India and Pakistan. So after the Shimla agreement between these two nations of India and Pakistan, this LOC was designated, and it is delineated on a map signed by Director General of Military Operations of both the armies and has the international sanctity of a legal agreement. But in contrast, the LAC is only a concept. It is not agreed upon by two countries, neither delineated on a map nor demarcated on the ground. That means if we observe the difference between the LOC and LAC, we can bring the two important points here. LOC was agreed by both the India and Pakistan, and it already got on the map. The line was drawn clearly on the map by agreeing the two nations, and it even got the approval from the international level. But the LAC is not agreed by both the India and the China, and it was neither delineated on a map and not demarcated on the ground. That's why even today the India and China have this disagreement on the LAC. Moving further, if we see in the map point of view, what is this LOC and LAC? If we see here the LOC, the line of control, it is in between of India and Pakistan. But if we see here we have the LAC, it is the issue between the India and the China. So here we have trying to explain this one in the map point of view. So here in the Ladakh portion, India and the China is having a demarcated line in the western zone, so which is famously known as western part sector of line of actual control. So it is nearly the Aksai Chin area, and the Ladakh area. This Aksai Chin area is in famous, and this is the Ladakh portion. And in the same way, the LOC is actually in between of India and the Pakistan. So it is in between of India and the China. And if we see what are the recent issues between India and the China, and in May 2020, the India and the China both had the clashes at the Nathula. It is in the Sikkim, and followed by in June 2020, the India and the Chinese armies were engaged in the standoff in Pangongso Lake at the Galwan Valley, and Demchok and the Daulat Beg Oldie near the eastern Ladakh. And along with that, in the same month of June 2020, India has banned nearly 59 apps originated from China. And in November 2020, India has blocked 43 new mobile apps, the mostly Chinese. All these bans has been enforced under the Information Technology Act of Section 69A. And India has enacted this act in the year 2000 to give a protection to the country's safety and security, and to have the security of the personal data of Indian citizens. So in this line, the India has banned the Chinese originated mobile apps. So to address all these issues, and we all know India and the China is having the bad relations in the India and China relations presently. So to develop the peaceful relation between these two nations, the recent developments were done as in February 2021, India and the China decided to finally reach an agreement on disengagement at the Pangong Lake near the Galwan Valley. And in the month of September 2022, this is very recent issue, the India and the Chinese armies has begun the disengagement from patrolling point 15 in the Gogra hot spring area of the eastern Ladakh. And we say this is one of the forwarded step we have taken to reduce the standoff at the India and the China borderline and to promote the peaceful cooperation between the India and the China. So this is all about the India and the China relations and why the India has having the disagreement between the LAC line with the China, and what is difference between LAC and LOC, what is the Yudh Abhyas, and why the China is opposing for that military exercise between the India and the USA. This is all about the day. We hope you all have enjoyed the video. See you soon with another important topic. Thank you so much.